Have you ever felt like your mind never stops? Like every silence becomes too loud, every truth too heavy, every thought a storm you can't escape? Most people live peacefully inside illusions, believing what comforts them, feeling what they are told to feel. But some minds, they see through it all. They see the lies in smiles, the emptiness behind happiness, the patterns in pain. They don't live on the surface, they dive. And once you dive too deep, there's no coming back. Intelligence is not just a gift. It's a mirror. And the more clearly you see yourself and the world, the harder it becomes to bear the reflection. This is not about sadness. It's about awareness. The curse of understanding too much. The beauty and the agony of seeing the truth when everyone else still dreams. This is why intelligent people suffer more. The burden of thought. It was night. The kind of night that feels alive, when silence has weight and every thought has a voice. Daniel sat alone in a small room filled with books, papers, and half-finished ideas. His desk was a battlefield of thoughts, fragments of philosophy, sketches of dreams, and unanswered questions scattered like scars of the mind. He wasn't sad. Not exactly. But he wasn't at peace either. Outside, life continued effortlessly. Laughter from the streets, footsteps fading on the pavement, the faint sound of a television from a nearby apartment. For them, life was simple. For him, it was an endless maze. Daniel's mind never stopped moving. Every sound, every face, every word had meaning. He could see what others couldn't, the cracks beneath the smiles, the emptiness inside conversations, the masks everyone wore to survive. He didn't hate people. He just understood them too well. And sometimes, understanding is the cruelest form of pain. The world looked different through his eyes. He saw not just what was, but why it was. Every decision, every desire, every lie. He traced them back to fear, to loneliness, to the fragile need to belong. And with each realization, something inside him broke a little more. Because when you see the world with too much clarity, you lose the ability to pretend. Pretending is what keeps most people alive. Pretending that love is eternal, that success is happiness, that we are all somehow special. Daniel couldn't pretend anymore. He saw through the illusion, and the truth felt like a cage made of light. Ignorance is a blessing, he once wrote in his journal. Knowledge is a wound that never heals. He remembered when he was younger, when thinking felt like flying. Ideas gave him purpose. Curiosity was his engine. But somewhere along the way, the wings turned to weight. He no longer thought to discover. He thought to understand the pain. Why do people lie when they crave honesty? Why do we destroy what we love? Why do we run toward what hurts us the most? The questions had no end and no answers. His intelligence, once a gift, had become a mirror. And in that mirror, he saw every flaw of humanity reflected back at him. He envied those who could live simply. Those who could wake up, go to work, fall in love, and never question why. He wondered what it felt like to believe without proof. To smile without analysis. To live without dissecting life itself. Daniel looked at his reflection in the dark window. The man staring back wasn't broken, just awake. And being awake, he realized, was its own kind of suffering. The night stretched endlessly, like time itself had stopped watching. He closed his eyes, hoping for silence inside his head. But the silence spoke louder than any noise. The problem, he whispered, is not that the world is cruel. It's that I see it too clearly. And in that moment, Daniel understood something few ever do. That the deepest suffering is not born from chaos, but from clarity. Because the more you understand the world, the harder it becomes to live in it. The curse of awareness. Awareness. It's what separates us from the rest of the world. It's what makes us human, and what destroys us slowly. Daniel woke up before the sun that morning. Not because of an alarm, but because his mind refused to rest. His thoughts had no mercy. They circled endlessly, like vultures waiting for answers that would never come. He walked to the window. The city was still half asleep, gray, silent, unaware of itself. For a moment, he envied it. He envied the simplicity of things that existed without knowing why. The sky didn't question its color. The birds didn't question their flight. Only humans, the self-aware creatures, could turn existence into torment. Daniel remembered something he once read. The more the mind awakens, the heavier the heart becomes. It was true. The curse of awareness is not about knowing facts. It's about seeing meaning where others see nothing. He couldn't walk through a crowd without feeling the quiet desperation behind their eyes. He couldn't hear laughter without sensing the pain it tried to hide. He couldn't love without dissecting the fragility of love itself. Every moment that should have brought peace, brought questions instead. And the more he understood, the less he could belong. Awareness is a beautiful poison. It opens your eyes to the truth, but once opened, they can never close again. He watched people chase dreams made of smoke. He saw them build lives on illusions, careers that didn't fulfill them, relationships that numbed them, distractions that kept them safe from thinking. And he understood, most people aren't asleep by accident. They're asleep by choice. Ignorance isn't the absence of intelligence. It's self-preservation. And Daniel had lost that protection long ago. He saw patterns in everything. How people repeat their mistakes. How happiness fades when examined too closely. How time erases everything we call meaning. Awareness gave him vision, but it took his peace. It made him wiser, but lonelier. To see the truth, he thought, is to walk alone through the ruins of illusion. He tried to explain it once, to a friend. He spoke about how people lie to themselves just to stay alive. How society rewards conformity and punishes depth. But halfway through the conversation, he realized something painful. The friend wasn't listening. He was waiting for Daniel to stop talking, so he could return to comfort. That's when Daniel stopped trying to explain. Not because he gave up on people, but because he understood them too well. He realized that the more aware you are, the more invisible you become. Because awareness isn't attractive, it's unsettling. It reminds people of everything they try to forget. There's a strange paradox in being awake. You see beauty more clearly, yet you can't enjoy it. You understand people more deeply, yet you feel farther from them. You crave truth, yet truth isolates you. Daniel sat back down at his desk, where a small note lay open. To know is to suffer. He stared at those words for a long time. Not as a philosopher, but as a man trapped between understanding and peace. The curse of awareness is eternal. Once the mind expands, it cannot shrink again. It sees the hidden machinery behind life, and can never unsee it. And as the first light of morning entered his room, Daniel realized something that would haunt him forever. The world doesn't hurt the intelligent. The understanding does. Because awareness is not light. It's fire. And those who see too much are the ones who burn the most. The isolation of those who understand too much. Isolation doesn't always begin with silence. Sometimes, it begins with understanding. Daniel never chose to be alone. It just happened, quietly, invisibly, the way shadows grow when light fades. He still saw people every day. He still smiled, nodded, exchanged polite words. But the connections felt hollow, like echoes in an empty cathedral. He used to enjoy conversation. Now, every dialogue felt like walking through fog. Words without meaning, emotions without depth. People spoke to be heard, not to be understood. They chased validation, not truth. Daniel's mind, sharp and restless, saw beneath it all. The forced laughter. The hidden insecurities. The masks people wore to survive the weight of their own thoughts. And the more he saw, the less he could belong. "It's not that I hate the world," he wrote one night. "I just can't find a place in it." Awareness became a wall, invisible but unbreakable. While others found comfort in distraction, he found only exhaustion. He could no longer lose himself in small talk, parties, or simple pleasures. His mind kept whispering, "What's the point?" He tried to silence it, but awareness doesn't sleep. It watches. It questions. It reminds. The curse of seeing too much is that you stop being able to see like everyone else. He noticed how people bonded over shared ignorance. How friendship often required pretending not to see the truth. And he couldn't pretend anymore. Loneliness became his companion. Not the physical kind, but the quiet isolation of the soul. The kind that lingers even in a crowded room. The kind that no voice can reach. He would sit in cafes, surrounded by laughter, yet feel miles away. Not because he was better, but because he felt too much. He carried the weight of invisible truths that others refused to hold. The deeper you see, he thought, the fewer people you find beside you. And so, Daniel withdrew, slowly, gently, without bitterness. He began to prefer solitude over shallow company. Silence over noise. Books over small talk. Reflection over conversation. He didn't know if it was wisdom or defeat. All he knew was that he could no longer go back. One evening, as the rain fell softly against his window, he realized that isolation wasn't punishment. It was transformation. It was the price of consciousness. The more he understood people, the less he could hate them, because he saw their pain hiding behind their actions. But the more compassion he felt, the lonelier he became, because understanding them didn't mean being understood in return. Awareness gave him empathy, but took away belonging. It made him gentle, but invisible. He once believed intelligence was connection, that wisdom would unite souls through truth. Now, he understood the irony. Truth separates before it unites. It burns the illusions that hold people together. And so he walked through life like a ghost among the living, present but unseen, watching, understanding, enduring. Yet somewhere deep inside, a quiet acceptance began to grow. Maybe solitude wasn't emptiness. Maybe it was space, space for thought, for peace, for clarity. Maybe those who walk alone are simply walking the path others are too afraid to see. Daniel closed his notebook that night, and for the first time, he didn't feel trapped by his loneliness. He felt defined by it, because to understand too much is to live in a world that no longer feels like yours. But sometimes, that world of silence is the only place where truth can breathe. The mind that becomes its own prison. The human mind is both a sanctuary and a cage. And for Daniel, that truth had become undeniable. He once believed that thinking was his greatest strength. That reason would lead him to freedom. But over time, thought became something else. Not a tool, but a trap. Every emotion he felt was dissected, analyzed, questioned. Happiness never lasted, because he needed to know why he was happy. Sadness never passed, because he kept asking what it meant. He could no longer feel, only interpret. The mind that once illuminated his path now built walls around him, walls made not of stone, but of understanding. "The more I think," he wrote, "the less I live." Daniel's awareness, once a gift, had turned into a labyrinth. Every corridor led to another question. Every answer dissolved into another doubt. He wandered through the maze of his own intelligence, searching for an exit that didn't exist. And the cruelest part, the walls of that prison were invisible to everyone but him. Outside, life continued. People laughed, worked, loved, and dreamed. But Daniel's mind no longer let him join them. Every time he tried, thought pulled him back, reminding him that nothing is pure, that everything hides a reason, a cause, a flaw. He had reached a level of clarity that blurred everything else. He saw patterns in pain, logic in love, reasons even in randomness. And when everything has meaning, nothing feels real anymore. A brilliant mind, he whispered, is often a mind that can't rest. He remembered when silence used to bring peace. Now it brought noise, the noise of endless reflection. He envied those who could sit still without analyzing the moment, who could breathe without searching for purpose in every breath. Daniel's intelligence had become self-destructive, a mirror reflecting itself forever. Each reflection sharper, colder, emptier. There's a kind of suffering that doesn't come from pain, but from overseeing the pain. It's not emotion that destroys you. It's the observation of emotion. You become your own scientist, dissecting your feelings until nothing human remains. Daniel realized he had turned into his own experiment. Every thought was a scalpel, every memory an open wound. And the more he studied himself, the less he recognized who he was. He wondered if this was the price of awareness. To see so clearly that reality itself loses form. To understand so deeply that nothing feels alive anymore. He wasn't mad. He wasn't broken. He was simply too conscious. And consciousness, he now understood, is not freedom. It's confinement inside perception. But even in that prison, a faint light remained. Because within the overthinking, within the endless loops of awareness, there was still a part of him that wanted peace. He realized that the mind may be a cage, but it's also the only place where he can build a key. Perhaps the point was not to escape the labyrinth, but to walk through it with eyes open, to learn to coexist with the noise, to stop fearing the questions, and start listening to the silence between them. Daniel closed his eyes. For the first time, he didn't fight his thoughts. He let them pass, like waves against the walls of his prison. And in that surrender, he felt something strange, almost sacred. Not freedom, but acceptance. The light within the darkness. There comes a point in every storm when the thunder fades, and you begin to hear the silence underneath. Daniel had reached that point. After countless nights of thought and chaos, something inside him shifted, not with noise, but with stillness. He realized the mind can destroy you, but it can also rebuild you. That the same awareness that brings pain can also bring peace, if you stop fighting it. He began to notice the small things again. The way sunlight moved across the floor, the sound of his own breathing, the scent of coffee in the morning. He saw meaning, not in philosophy, but in presence. For the first time in years, he didn't need answers. He only needed to feel. Maybe the purpose of seeing too much, he thought, is learning to see beauty in what's already here. Awareness had once been his curse. Now it was becoming his guide. He realized that intelligence without compassion becomes cruelty, and self-awareness without gratitude becomes despair. But when the two meet, awareness and acceptance, they create something sacred, something like light breaking through the cracks. Daniel understood now that his suffering wasn't meaningless. It had shaped him. It had stripped away illusion, ego, and pride. Until all that was left was truth. And truth, he discovered, is simple. You cannot escape pain, but you can learn to hold it gently. Every scar in his mind told a story. Every sleepless night was a lesson. He had looked into the abyss of thought, and found not madness, but humanity. Pain, he wrote, is the shadow of consciousness. Wherever there is light, there must be darkness. He realized that being intelligent doesn't mean avoiding suffering. It means transforming it, turning confusion into clarity, and loneliness into understanding. People like him, the thinkers, the feelers, the restless souls, they carry the weight of the world quietly. But that weight, that sensitivity, is also what makes them capable of deeper love, deeper art, deeper truth. He was no longer ashamed of how much he felt. He no longer envied ignorance, because he had seen what ignorance hides. And though the truth was heavy, it was real. Daniel stood by his window again, watching the city lights shimmer beneath the rain. The world hadn't changed, but he had. He no longer saw masks, only people. He no longer saw emptiness, only longing. He no longer saw suffering, only the path through it. Awareness, he realized, was not a curse after all. It was a mirror showing both the shadow and the light. And once you accept both, you become whole. The same mind that once imprisoned him was now the one setting him free. He smiled faintly and whispered, "Maybe the point was never to escape the darkness, but to learn how to shine within it." And for the first time, Daniel felt peace, not the peace of ignorance, but the peace that comes from understanding. Because in the end, intelligent people may suffer more, but they also see more, feel more, and love more. They are the ones who carry the light, not despite their pain, but because of it.